Yo, what up? It's DoeNut, and you tuning in to all your Illuminati news. We are here with Ryder Lee, filmmaker, Paranoid American, and we're
It's
gonna go.
paranoid.
It's Paranoid and Ryder Lee, filmmaker. We're
What
gonna
up?
what up? What up? We're gonna go over Programmed to Red Rum, MK Ultra, Mind Control, Cinema, Intelligence, Hashashin Order, the movie, The Shining. It's occult symbolism. When I was looking at these old posters, I saw them Sampaku eyes. I'd be telling my audience about the symbolism of the Sampaku and the stories that are told in these books and art and literature and cinema is all connected to some sort of mind control. And we're here with Ryder Lee, filmmaker of this new film, Clockwork Shining. And we're going to go over so much. You're going to absolutely love it. But before we start, how you doing, Ryder Lee and Paranoid American? Woo woo!
What's up? What's up? Good to be here. Thank you guys for having me on. Really appreciate it. What's going on, Paranoid American? Good to see you, brother.
I'm excited, man. This is one of my absolute favorite topics of all time. Is anything Kubrick and symbolism related? So I'm ready for this.
Yeah, I'll be studying up on all that Kubrick work,
Yeah.
I got all the Room 237 Kubrick, stuff.
That's good, bro. Did you like the movie? You watched it, right? Clockwork Shining. What'd you think of
Absolutely
it?
love the film. Great film. You broke it down wonderfully. I don't know how much I can reveal of the film without spoiling it, but I got all those links down below. Everybody go check out the film. Can you explain what it's about for our audience? So
Well, it originally started me and Jay Widener. I was doing a show with him, and people that are familiar with Jay Widener's work, they know that he did two previous movies called Kubrick's Odyssey 1 and 2, which he basically came to the conclusion that The Shining is Stanley Kubrick's confession to faking the moon landing. And I was bringing him on my show, and I had watched The Shining several times, and I was bringing him on to talk about it. And I was like, oh, well, what am I going to find in this movie that people haven't already seen or like have created a new theory about? Because there's so many different theories about The Shining. People have picked it apart with a fine tooth comb, like there's so many different things. Like, it's all in Jack's head. It's all in Wendy's head. It's the faking of the moon landing, like Jay Widener is, Native American genocide. It's the Holocaust, which I think that all of that all ties in together and, brings our movie to the forefront. It doesn't discount any of those other theories. I think it just really adds to it. But this is something new. This is something that no one has ever heard before. This isn't a rehashing of old information, though we do bring other people's research into our movie and also bring in Jay Widener. We talk about the moon landing a little bit within our film just because Jay Widener is in it and he made those films about, Kubrick faking the moon landing. So what had happened was I was bringing him on my show. I was rewatched his movies. I was rewatching The Shining a bunch of times, and I'm seeing all these different things within The Shining that is pointing towards something completely different than what other people think is actually going on. And I was explaining this to Jay during, my show, and I'm like, hey, Jay, like, this is what I think's happening. And he was like, that makes a lot of sense. And a few months later, I was like, hey, we should do, a documentary about this. He was like, yeah, we should, but we ended up doing another documentary before this one, so we could really cut our teeth on that, and which I'm really glad that we did do that first one before this one, because this one is like a really hefty project. I worked on it for like 6 months straight. Like I would eat, sleep, and breathe this freaking documentary, and you know what that's like, DoeNut. Like you had to put together a lot of videos and stuff, and this took up a lot of my life and a lot of time and energy and effort I put into this thing. So
congratulations, because I'm, a big filmmaker, love the art. It's the highest form of art where you got the mixtures of writers, actors, editors, cinematographers, sound, music composition. It's like all the different arts put into one. And Stanley Kubrick has done an excellent job on all of his movies. You made multiple movies and films, Paranoid as well. We're all building projects. Paranoid and I are working on the Illuminati comic right now.
Whoa.
And so it does take a lot of effort and energy to work on comic books, to work on films, to work on editing, and just, my beanie off to you, bro. You know what I'm saying? My beanie off to you, you know what I mean? Because like you gotta put into work, get creative, and build. And you did bring a total new perspective of the film that got a lot of the guests that we had on super hyped about it. AM Wake Up Show, Real Nature Boy, they just couldn't stop talking about this film. And so I'm so grateful to have you on, because these topics of A Clockwork Orange, Eyes Wide Shut, One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, all about LSD, all about mind control. It's all about it. So yeah, we gotta have a great show for all y'all today.
Yeah, and Jack Nicholson being involved in that scene as well, and basically promoting a lot of those early movies that were coming directly out of Laurel Canyon, which involved LSD. You had Psych Out, you had Easy Rider, you had the Monkeys movie Head, and all these movies that Jack Nicholson was in like his early years were all like this glorification of LSD. And then that relates into, Lookout Mountain Air Force Base, which was on top of Laurel Canyon. That is a big part of our movie as well, because Lookout Mountain Air Force Base highly resembles the Overlook and Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. And it used to be the hotel that was there, and the hotel burnt down, and then the Air Force came in and built a movie studio on top of the very same spot where the Lookout Hotel used to be. And that's where like all these highly classified military films were made at, which are a lot of them are still classified to this very day. A lot of people had high-ranking clearance for this place. A lot of big-name actors, back in the 60s. Even Ronald Reagan had top secret security clearance for this Lookout Mountain military base on top of Laurel Canyon. Marilyn Monroe, James Stewart, Cary Grant. And nobody really knows exactly what was going on up there, but we do know one thing for a fact, that is where these atomic bomb test sites were filmed at. And they weren't actual real atomic bombs being dropped. And that's something that I'm sure a lot of people by now have already figured out, but I'm sure for people that don't know that are kind of shocked and surprised that it's not actually them filming a real atomic bomb dropping. Is filmed on miniature sets, and that was filmed at Lookout Mountain Air Force Base on top of Laurel Canyon.
And this whole thing with mountains, bringing that up, I even had it in the thumbnail where, I switched it out. I wrote intelligence instead of mountains. But mountains are so important to ancient cults, going back to the volcano cults, or films like the Twin Peaks of the pyramids as well. But the Hashashin Order, going back to some of the first MK Ultra through different drugs of the guy who was controlling them, who was the man on top of the mountain, Hassan Asaba. And you caught something pretty deep with Catcher in the Rye. But before we get into that, if Paranoid or you have any other stuff on the mountain.
I'll throw on that same man in the mountain aspect. Plato's Cave, I think, would technically qualify as a theater built inside of a mountain too.
Right. And the volcano thing is huge too. The volcano cults, like it's a pyramid as well. But
yeah, there's supposedly a mountain in Colorado too that's called Monarch Mountain, and that's what people say, that the Monarch poster in behind the twins, when Danny first sees the twins inside of the Overlook Hotel within The Shining, there's a poster on the back wall that says Monarch, and people have referred to that. Stanley Kubrick was trying to say that it was about Monarch Mountain in Colorado, or Monarch Ski Resort, or whatever it was, and people have tried to relate that to the Minotaur aspect. Some say that it's not like a ski person on the actual poster, that it's like a Minotaur symbolism, which Kubrick does do a lot of Minotaur symbolism within his movies. He has Jack Nicholson being like the Kubrick stare is what they call it. But I have a different interpretation, as you know, since you watched the film, of what Monarch means. And
it's interesting that they do that scene with Jack Nicholson in the beginning where he was recommended from his friends in Colorado, in Denver, Colorado. So a lot of things are pointing to Colorado. And I did put the, Monarch butterfly in there as well.
yeah, the symbolism within that, and because as we show in our movie, A Clockwork Shining, the people in Denver are mentioned several times in this interaction between Ullman and Jack. The first 10 minutes of the movie are really astounding to a lot of people, and some people think that that's some of the most boring parts of the entire movie, but it's really not, because that first 10 minutes of The Shining really gives away the entire movie. Like, Ullman tells him everything that's going to happen to him in the rest of the movie by saying that it's not a physically demanding job, it's more of a psychological job because of the isolation and because it snows up there and it's very difficult to get off the mountain during the wintertime. And then he goes on to tell Jack, tells him about Grady, which is another interesting aspect that I didn't even think about until I had already finished the movie, is that Ullman tells Jack that the previous caretaker within at the hotel was Charles Grady. But then later, whenever Jack meets up with Grady, Grady refers to himself as Delbert Grady. So there's two different names. There's even inconsistencies between the dialogue of the characters within this movie, not only with the continuity errors, with things disappearing and reappearing, and carpet changing patterns, chairs disappearing in the background and then reappearing, stickers on walls disappearing, light switches disappearing and reappearing. There's also continuity errors between the actual dialogue between the characters, which is like so fascinating with a such a pristine filmmaker as Stanley Kubrick. Like, there's why are all these continuity errors in this movie? And no one has ever really been able to explain that until our movie came out.
Yeah, you did a really good job on showing, I don't know if I'm going to spoil it, but showing like the footprints at the end and these different memories through MK Ultra implantations, especially today's time with the music industry. We were connecting it to Laurel Canyon, that mountain where this Navy intelligence program built the hippie movement. With built the Sharon Tates and the Charles Mansons, and I'm pretty sure that's what's going on with the Russell Brands as well. And Doja Cat had a scene in her newest music videos of the room 237 type
The Shining bathroom. Yeah.
bathroom.
I didn't know about that. I didn't see that.
Yeah, so she's been doing a bunch of stuff. Even you could see a 666 looking thing right here. Crazy music video. But is this stuff really going on? I liked how Weiner was connecting this maze to the, like the mind. And I look at these symbols and I know it's all connected. Like, this is like the 8-pointed star of Venus and Lucifer that was brought up in the film, also connected to Ishtar in these gateway portals that you'll see. This maybe at the Vatican from an aerial view, and on top of it will be an 8-pointed star, or even on these ancient tablets, you'll see this key symbolism and a star. It even has been connected, I think. This film came out before, which goes into LSD mind control. And there's the lock, right? And then the lock and the key kind of symbolism. I'm sure there is something there looking at all the symbols, because even at this scene, I'm not sure how true this is. I just saw it on YouTube, so I grabbed it. But it's like room 237. I got the room 237. I can go in there at any time. But it's connected to this 137, 237, like 137, these numbers on this shot right here. So I went to Occult Decode to see what's connected 237, and the word conspiracy theorist equals 237, which is kind of funny. And I even went a little more schizo and a little deeper. And I was writing in all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, but he writes it differently. Like this one says V, all work and no play, Ma S, Jack a dull boy. So I was writing in all of these, and that one is like 371, which is almost 237. And it seems like maybe and then Overlook Hotel is 173, like 371.
Well,
So it's
317. Well, 217 is the original hotel number from Stephen King's book.
Oh, really?
217, not 317, but it's kind of.
So this is based off of Stephen King's book. Yes, I was just getting a little schizo for the audience. I thought it was fun. I feel like that the writing and how smart the guy is like he's trying to get that number down, but he just can't get it to equal out in gematria. So he keeps on writing it like, how am I going to get this through?
Yeah. And as you watch the movie, we, disclose the reason why he keeps, writing the same phrase over and over and over again. It's a psychic driving technique, which everyone is familiar. I'm sure, well, not everyone, but I'm sure a few people, definitely the people that are listening and you DoeNut and Paranoid American, that psychic driving was basically invented by Ewan Cameron. Well, it wasn't invented by Ewan Cameron. It actually came over through the Nazi Germans that were brought over through Project Paperclip, and he learned all of these MK Ultra techniques from them, and started practicing it in Canada. But there's real life scenarios surrounding this type of psychic driving, which relates to Catcher in the Rye and the two assassinations that happened within a year of the release of The Shining, which was John Lennon and the attempted assassination on Ronald Reagan. And Catcher in the Rye was involved with both of those assassinations, and one being an attempt and one actually really going through. But Catcher in the Rye was on the scene of both of those assassinations, and Kubrick had it in his movie a year before those happened. So,
and it was kind of connected. I don't know. I don't want to give out too much information. Everybody, I got the link down below for the film. You're going to really, really enjoy it. But can you tell us a little bit of it, or do you want to save that for them to watch? Because a lot of people believe that was a trigger word, right? And I still think that there's a lot of truth to that as well. But what you guys brought up in the story of The Catcher in the Rye, it's actually connected in a little insider like nudge of towards the ending of the book.
Yeah, and then you also have like with Sirhan that supposedly assassinated RFK in '68, I believe it was. And he was also doing a form of psychic driving in his notebooks that were recovered. It says RFK must die, repeated over and over and over and over again. And there's so many correlations between Kubrick's work and like real life reality. It's so strange. We bring up Lolita in our movie, A Clockwork Shining, which had real life repercussions on the star of Lolita, which was Sue Lyon, which the movie is about. Basically a man sleeping with a very underage girl, and that's pretty much exactly what's happening to her in real life. She's basically having that exact same thing happen to her by Kubrick's producer. And then you have all the strange things with The Clockwork Orange as well. Like it was banned in several countries. Kubrick pulled it from being shown in several countries because crime was skyrocketing after A Clockwork Orange came out. And there was like literally Clockwork Orange murders that was going on. So Kubrick pulled the film. And then you have The Shining with Shelley Duvall and the things that Shelley Duvall went through with within the making of The Shining. It basically ruined Shelley Duvall's career. So it ruined Sue Lyon's career back whenever he was making Lolita, and then it ruined Shelley Duvall's career back whenever he was making The Shining. And it's just like there's so many real life coincidences when it comes to Kubrick and his movies and reality imitating art. And it's way interesting. And then when you get into Sirhan and, you know, him basically repeating that phrase over and over and over again, and then Jack is basically repeating the exact same phrase over and over again. It's just a different version. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. And then when Wendy comes in to, you know, see him and realize that he's not actually writing a novel the whole time, he's just writing the same phrase which you got up on the screen there, and he becomes triggered.
Yeah, that's wild. That repetition, and I didn't know RFK. So you learn a lot about a lot of different topics in this film on the MK Ultra. So yeah, it was really good. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's not only a film about The Shining and Stanley Kubrick. It's like it's using Stanley Kubrick and The Shining to relay a lot of other information. Like we also have Mark Devlin in our film. We have Joe Atwell in our film. We have MK Ultra survivor Kathy O'Brien in our film. We have AFOSI Air Force Special Agent Walter Bosley in our film, along with me and Jay Widener as well. So it's not only a film about Stanley Kubrick and The Shining and The Clockwork Orange, but it's a film about the music industry in the 60s, which is a really big eye-opener that happened to me. I didn't even, when I was making the movie, I was kind of like, wow, this is shocking to me, because I always knew that, you know, the music industry was kind of, you know, rigged in like a certain way. And if you didn't have the backing, then it didn't matter how good of a person you are at any given instrument. It doesn't matter how good of a guitar player you are or how good of a singer you are. If you don't have the right connections, you're not going to get anywhere with it. And that was a really big revelation to me as I was making the movie. And I was like, holy crap, this is why you can be as good as you can possibly be at any given thing. But if you don't have the right family behind you, then you're not going to make it. And that's the case with all of these bands that came up in the 60s. They all had military intelligence backgrounds. They all had military fathers, or somebody was a part of their family that was a high-ranking military officer. Like Jim Morrison of The Doors, his dad was basically responsible for starting the Vietnam War and the false flag Gulf of Tonkin incident that got us into the Vietnam War that killed thousands of people. He was a high-ranking military general and a naval general. And that makes a lot of sense as to, you know, Jim Morrison's behavior within The Doors. He was just kind of wild and crazy and would just do whatever he wanted to do. He'd be undressing on stage, performing drunk, getting into fights, just basically wreaking havoc. And it makes sense because every time that he would be thrown in jail, he would immediately be out. So it's like he knew that there wasn't going to be any consequences for his actions because his dad was this high-ranking military officer. And you find that throughout the 60s with all of these musicians that are in big-time bands. And Mark Devlin lays this out beautifully in our documentary, and how they all have some sort of military intelligence background. And same way with Sharon Tate's dad. Sharon Tate's dad is the exact same way. He was also a high-ranking military general. Bob Marley's dad was a British naval commander. So all these people and all these musicians that people have looked up to for a really long time were essentially put there for a reason. And the whole hippie movement was there, as to stomp out the anti-war movement. Then they were kind of like, oh, well, how do we get rid of this monster that we created? And then they're like, okay, well, we'll just insert, serial killers and murder and all this stuff into the entire scene. And then that'll get people to, questioning if they actually want to be a part of this movement, if this movement is really the best thing to be a part of. And that's really how they did it. And after the Sharon Tate Manson murders, the hippie movement was basically over. That was the nail in the coffin of the entire movement.
Yeah, you got Charles Manson, and this is happening today with Russell Brand. And Tessarian really pointed out so many things on this MK Ultra and connections in one of his films that he released. That's where I learned a lot of my information on these trigger words and all that. And also with Sharon Tate and the Doors, right? The Doors of perception goes into LSD, goes into Aldous Huxley. Here's Sharon Tate, everyone connected to the military. And also it's weird that there's an Andrew Tate as well, who's also his dad's connected. He was part of the Navy program as a kid. His
Well,
dad
I gotta point out something too that's been blowing my mind. So I've been doing the Occult Disney podcast for 2 years now, and one of the weirdest themes that kept popping up is that all of these famous children's authors all have backgrounds in military intelligence too. There's a long line of them. The most of the Disney movies that didn't come directly from Grimm's fairy tales or some other like very ancient stories. Roald Dahl is a really good example. James and the Giant Peach. The people that
the Last of the Mohicans.
Last of the Mohicans, but a whole bunch of the media that we consume as kids just growing up is coming directly from the military. Think about it. The music, it has, if you're thinking like 60s, 70s, music is coming from military intelligence families. All of the children's books that those parents read growing up and read their kids growing up, military intelligence. In the 80s and 90s, all the video games the kids are playing growing up is all military intelligence. So there's this very consistent theme that the military almost has like a direct pipeline to media that's consumed by children.
Absolutely. And then you look at Catcher in the Rye as well. I mean, that was written by an intelligence officer, and that was like required reading for many people whenever they were in public school.
Yeah, I had to read it in elementary school.
Yeah.
We had a talk a little bit earlier today with Chris Knowles, and he made such a great point that one of the ways that the state tries to have full manipulation over a generation is by basically controlling the sexual appetite of the up and coming generation itself. And Catcher in the Rye is one of these examples where reading it, like you go through like a cathartic experience where this proxy of the character in the book is doing all these coming of age sort of experiences, but it almost removes that potential for the reader to go through all of these. Like it could almost stunt growth in a very intentional way. And then reading it back or having it next to you is kind of like a trigger. It's almost like a cross between, I forgot all the different levels. I think like delta is like the assassination and like the beta is like the sex kit. It almost just combines all of the alpha, beta, Charlie deltas together into one single trigger.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Absolutely. And then, you know, why was the book on the scene of these two assassinations of, you know, John Lennon by Mark David Chapman? I mean, that was a really weird one. Whenever he killed John Lennon, he sat down on the curb and just started reading Catcher in the Rye. And when the police showed up, and then whenever he was in court being prosecuted for the murder of John Lennon, he stood up in court and said, if you want my defense, all you got to do is read Catcher in the Rye. And then later on, a psychiatrist went to visit him in prison a couple of years later, and he's sitting in his prison cell and he's still reading Catcher in the Rye. And it's like, what is actually going on here? Like, what is the deal with this book, and why are so many people required to read this? And I'm right there with you, Paranoid American. I think that it is a way to debase us, and a way to, you know, take our youth and our innocence away without actually having to go through anything, just by like reading something, because we know that reading is really effective. And that was like the way that, you know, we got, you know, certain propaganda. You know, that's how it really started, was with books, and then it went into radio, and then into TV. You know, well, music is somewhere in there as well, in between all those. So now we have this device in our pockets, you know.
And also, like, the medium sort of changed from the radio star, and then the radio star John Lennon was killed, and then a year later MTV was released, and the song that they played was Video Killed the Radio Star. And then the new medium of the television really came in through the programming of music in a weird little way, could that be intentional going into this new platform? Just like we are all locked down, for example, and then once we left the lockdown, we were introduced to the new technologies of ChatGPT, introduced to a lot of new blockchain technologies and ideas, and everybody is pushing the psychedelics, the MK Ultra drugs. You got the most mainstream podcasts telling everybody, like Life Magazine did, to take these psychedelics on a mass scale. I mean, every time President Trump gets interviewed, either by these big podcasts, they're always telling him that he needs to get all of Congress to take ayahuasca and magic mushrooms. And it just goes into the whole MK Ultra, same things that they did with this. Maybe the milk scene was something with drugs. I don't know. Oh, another thing is something to add to what Jay was talking about. I won't talk too much about it, but you guys were showing some symbolism of the phallic symbolism, and it's even in the Clockwork Orange, right? The nose is very phallic-y, that he'd be put in, Kubrick be putting like little symbolic phallics in there. You know what I mean? So,
well, yeah. If you go back to that picture too, the wristwatch that right there on his arm, that's the third eye. That's the third eye symbolism, right there.
the Illuminati eyeball.
That's right.
Illuminati eye. Yeah.
On top of the pyramid, like that center triangle, like right there in the middle with the lady, like it's on top of that center triangle. It's the eye of the pyramid.
So one of my favorite questions to ask when all this Kubrick symbolism comes up is this Kubrick playing with us? Is he taunting us because he's got this knowledge? Is he trying to send a message as like a white hat? Or is this just like stroking an ego? Like, what's the actual intent? If we assume everything that people usually claim about his movies and like all of the sort of premise of your documentary, if we just accept that absolutely as fact, what's the actual intent of Kubrick to do all of this?
Well, that's a really good question, and I think the symbolism is one thing, and then like the continuity error stuff is a completely other thing. And he's a very symbolic person. He wanted everything to be perfect, every shot to be lined up. He wanted everything to be super realistic, and I think that a lot of it could be him playing with us within the symbolism. But he has symbolism literally everywhere, like within The Shining. One of the first scenes in the first 10 minutes, whenever the doctor comes to visit Danny after he gets his psychic visions, and she comes to, basically analyze him on the bed. And whenever he's laying back, there's a teddy bear that's behind him, a brown teddy bear that looks almost identical to the bear that's in the scene whenever Wendy is running around the hotel after she had been traumatized, and she goes upstairs, and that one right there, that's it. That's the one. So that's like that's a major foreshadowing. Like that takes
what movie
a lot of time and effort. Huh?
What movie was that again at the bottom?
That's the same movie. That's The Shining.
Yeah.
That's from The Shining.
This was a scene that was originally in the book that Kubrick also had tweaked quite a bit.
It's freaking weird. It's like, what do you think it is?
Well, it's they're having a hanky panky fetish session. That's a furry, and I mean, yeah, they're pretty explicit about what's happening in this particular scene in the movie, and it was similar in the book. Although the book, I think, someone was dressed up like a wolf and it was like a guy and a girl, or I remember this being a very specific thing that Kubrick didn't omit. He just changed it entirely and then just stuck it in almost as like a non sequitur. But I've never actually put the connection together between the stuffed bear and the bear scene. So that's actually a really genius take.
Yeah, it's and when you watch the movie, you'll be able to put two and two together and understanding actually what's going on. with this scene and why this scene is even in there. It really explains all any holes that people had within The Shining, like things that didn't make sense to them, really make sense when you watch our movie, watch our documentary, A Clockwork Shining. It all starts to really come together, and it's really difficult to argue with. I haven't had anybody, come out and be like, "You're 100% wrong," and give me reasons why I'm wrong. Because I mean, this is my theory of what's going on. And I think it makes the most sense out of all of them, because whenever you put all these things together, you put together the Catcher in the Rye that Wendy is reading. The first time you meet him, we just showed the picture of Wendy's reading Catcher in the Rye a year before both assassination attempts, where Catcher in the Rye was on the scene. Then you put in the psychic driving aspect of Jack's character, writing the same sentence over and over and over again. And then you have the real life scenario of that with Sirhan and the RFK assassination. And then you look at the Monarch poster in the background. The first time that Danny sees anything strange in the hotel, there just happens to be a poster in the background that says Monarch. So once you put all these things together, you're like, holy shit, what's happening here? And then we get also into room 237 as well, and what we actually think is going on there, because there's real life instances to explain exactly what happened whenever Jack walked in the room 237. So the first time that Jack experiences anything strange is not until after he takes the alcoholic drink from Lloyd, the bartender. And then Wendy comes down, and Wendy is like, "Hey, Danny was attacked by a lady upstairs." So Jack is like, "Okay, well, what room was it?" Then he goes upstairs to look for the lady that was supposedly there that Wendy told him about. So then he walks in the room 237, and room 237 looks really psychedelic. It's unlike anything else in the entire movie. The carpeting is different, the blinds and the shades, the couch is very vibrant. It's got greens and purples, and it seems really psychedelic. So then when he walks in, he sees the lady in the bathtub, which is a very attractive naked woman that turns into an elderly lady. And then he walks out of there, and then he goes back up to the apartment where Wendy's at. And then Wendy asked him, "Did you see anything up there?" And he said, "I didn't see anything. I didn't see nothing." So we relate that to real life experiments that have happened to people in like real life scenarios of like Frank Olson, which was drugged by Sidney Gottlieb and then jumped out of a hotel and
Pushed.
killed himself. And also a lot of the first army personnel that were involved in this also had the exact same thing happen to them. Some of the first MK Ultra experiments were done on army personnel. They were army volunteer personnel, and they were never told what experiments that were going to be ran on them. But whenever they got there to get into the experiments, they were kind of told, "Hey, you just inhale this substance," and then they would be out of their minds for 2 weeks at a time, because they were using a 100 times more powerful agent than LSD, which was called BZ. BZ is like 100 times more powerful than LSD. And a lot of those people ended up
Where can I get some of that?
I don't think you want it, dude. I don't think you want it. The stories that these people have told. Yeah. Yeah, it's wild. And when you look at those real life instances, it really makes sense that it's a high possibility that Lloyd spiked Jack's drink with some sort of hallucinogenic drug. And then that's whenever he walks into room 237 and he has all he experiences the woman in there because he's tripping balls.
So when they go into this room 237, they're like on these hallucinogens. They see the stuff. It is a great film, and we crashed through over 1,000 people tuning in. We're streaming all over the place. I like to remind everybody when we pass through the 1,000 mark to like the video, share it out. We're joined by filmmaker Ryder Lee. His new film is out now on Amazon. I got that link down below, so make sure to click that link down below. It brings you right to the movie. I just finished it. It's absolutely incredible. Really fun. One of my favorite topics of a lot of the topics I talk about here on the channel of the Hashashin order, in my opinion, like going back to the different cults that make people brainwashed to carry out missions. This is ancient stuff, and we're seeing it happen today with celebrities, with the fake alien agenda, with all of that. And we are also doing these live streams, Paranoid American and I, for the Illuminati comic. And I want to say thank you to everybody that y'all got us past the big stretch goal of the 30,000 last night. Look at that. 469 subscribers. Thank you so much. And let's get it past tonight. We got the next stretch goal. Look at this. We, bam, fully funded. First 3 minutes, 2,500, 5,000, 50,000, 25,000. Boom, boom, boom. And every time we get through these stretch goals, everybody gets extra stuff. So our next stretch goal is the 33,000. Let's try to get it.
That's not. We'll definitely hit that. Not even a problem.
We hit this. Sign up. We'll feed the cat. My cat Chan. We'll give you a shout out. And all of that. Make sure to go to the Illuminati comic and go check out the new film by Ryder Lee. All the stuff we're talking about now. Clockwork Shining. Paranoid, you got anything on the Illuminati comic? I know we got some new fan art from the Netherlands. Masha, I think their name is Masha. Thank you so much. Love this. Goes into some MK Ultra with John C. Lilly and the dolphin. You know what I'm saying? The dolphin experiments. And we also got more dolphin. This is going to be part of the cover of the VHS box. So the VHS box is looking sick. So make sure this is limited time only. You get it over here. Let's try to get this past the 33,000 mark tonight. We'll give you a shout out whenever you back it, and we'll give you a shout out and we'll feed the cat.
We could even do a preview of the Illuminati Yacht Club Schizo Splash.
Oh, do we have an updated version of it?
I mean, I think we can just start just showing off the damn thing. We're
let's
weeks in here.
Let's do that. Let's do that. Ryder Lee, while I look for that, tell us about where people can find you as well. And the film, I got them links down below. Oh, you're muted.
My bad. Raised by Giants on YouTube and any and all podcast platforms. And please watch my movie and support independent filmmakers. You know, Hollywood is wrecked. Hollywood is over. And this is really what we need to be doing is supporting people that are making content. And buy the Illuminati comic too. I love that trailer. That trailer's booming. And you're doing a VCR tape of it too, dude. A VHS, bro.
Well, it's a VHS box. Yeah, we got them on hand.
That's sick.
It just has it's going to be filled with stickers and buttons and comics and all kinds of goodie. Everything but a VHS cassette tape.
Yeah.
You need the VHS in there, bro. Kick it old school, dude.
Right.
Well,
do you remember those? Do you remember those old comics that you could get on the DVD or whatever? Like there would be like bonus features or whatever that you could like just stick in, and then it would just automatically flip through.
Yeah, motion comics.
Yeah, those were dope.
Those were sick.
They never really caught on.
They didn't. But it was cool as like a little bonus.
Yeah, I'm looking for the Schizo Splash. So give me a second.
I can pull it up if you want.
Oh yeah, sure, please. And what I do like about the filmmaking thing that you're saying is I'm just like a huge filmmaking fan. So anybody who makes a film, puts in the dedication, is super inspiring, and I love it. So tell us what is this? Well, I saw Kim K right there, and I think I see DoeNut right there.
Yeah, here's a quick little large scale preview. Look how huge this thing is. This thing is massive. It's going to be printed on the back of the towel of a huge 30 by 60 inch towel.
The Illuminati Yacht Club get a towel.
This is an Illuminati Yacht Club thing. This is also going to be printed. This is one of the art prints that everyone's going to get in their physical orders. So no matter what tier you get, as long as you got a printed comic, you're going to get a print of one of these. And it's essentially based after a Where's Waldo kind of theme. So there's going to be a list of all the different characters and things that you're going to want to find. For example, we got Peanut. There's our homie Peanut right down here.
Oh, Peanut.
Diamond Nuts.
Yeah, Peanut's in there. We got the Illuminati Penguin. We got Donut and Trump next to each other.
MAGA.
They got me up in there. We got little kids playing with a square and compass. There's so many different little references in this thing. Little aliens.
Yeah, it's really cool. I wonder what the fish means underneath the eye of Set. That's the eye of Set.
You're gonna have to find out by grabbing yourself a copy.
That's so cool.
I think you might have a copy.
That's so
here's
awesome.
here's the raccoon. I forgot what was his name of Fred, maybe. We got a little checkerboard patterns. There's so many things that you're gonna be finding in this thing. And I don't even want to give too much away, but this will be a fun little thing to animate too, like a cool little ambient animation background. So this will be part of
that's what
everyone.
we want to do.
Even if you get the digital deluxe, you'll get a copy of this as a wallpaper to use for whatever you want.
And that's what I mean. I really would like to turn this into a film, Ryder Lee, the Illuminati comic, into a film, like you put out. You know what I mean?
I'd be down to help in whatever way that I can possibly help you guys out, for sure. I love doing it. I mean, editing is one of my favorite things to do. It's so much fun. It just gets so tedious. And during the making of this movie, I just want, oh my God, there's times I want to just, but it's just the way that it is with like editing and, watching the movie over and over and over again. And this movie's almost a 2-hour long movie. So it's like, I watched it so many times over and over and over again. So it was, but it was still a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. It's some of my favorite things to do. So yeah, whatever I can do to help you guys, I'm definitely willing to do that.
Yeah. And your film, we'll play the trailer at the end of the show. I really enjoyed it. It was so dope. It was like, it was such a good movie. Like, I don't know if you got to watch Michael Tessarian's film as well. He made it a long time ago, like I think 10 years ago, but he went over all the different events that were happening at these schools. I'm not even going to get too deep into putting words together, but all these events happening at schools, like Columbine and whatnot. And this is what's interesting is that, which is connected to everything. Alex, who likes a little bit of that ultra violence, Alex Malcolm McDonald was in a film. I'm not sure if you know about this, but it was called If. Shout out to Mark Steves at My Family Thinks I'm Crazy, who actually introduced you and I, Ryder, together.
Yeah, good dude. Love Mark Steves.
He showed me this film, If, which has got the same guy. And Stanley Kubrick got him to play in Clockwork Orange because of this film. And this film is about one of the first school events that went down. You
Bang
seen
Bangs.
this?
I have not seen it, but I've heard people bring it up. I'm pretty sure Mark actually brought it up to me as well. But Stanley Kubrick, the actor that plays Alex in A Clockwork Orange, he basically like had a little falling out with him. Like, it's so weird between like Stanley Kubrick and these actors. Like he either like completely wrecks and destroys them, or he turns them into superstars, or he just completely stops talking to them. And that's what he did with the actor that plays Alex there. But I'll definitely have to check out If. I haven't been able to watch too much stuff because I've just been trying to promote this film a lot. But it's sort of, is it about mind control as well, like A Clockwork Orange?
It goes into some weird stuff, but it's just more so of, It's weird. It's strange. You kind of got to see it. It's not really much mind control, but I'm sure there's some elements to it. But it has a lot of the same elements though in filming techniques that Stanley Kubrick modeled uh, Clockwork Orange off of, especially the driving scene, which was incredible. I just absolutely love Clockwork Orange and The Shining, two of my favorite films. Watched Clockwork Orange when I had my first hangover when I was around 10 years old, and it just never could get a lot of the imagery out of my head, from the ultra violence of the homeless guy, which was traumatizing, to the break-in scenes. And I had Cynthia Chung on, absolutely incredible author, researcher, and she was breaking down how they use certain music elements in a lot of these films connected to classical, something beautiful, some beautiful music, but they mix it in with the little ultra violence to make people not want to listen to classical, like Beethoven, who was trained by the Illuminati. We go over that in the Illuminati comic, but his Ode to Joy, a beautiful song.
That's crazy. Yeah. So now that puts a whole different spin that I didn't even consider. But in Clockwork Orange, the music that Alex loves and is essentially being used to program him, or arguably deprogram him, is literally Illuminati music.
Yeah, and also like the two
and
tribes.
imagery too. The imagery is just like being pounded into his head. I think that it's said that a lot of psychopaths and serial killers, you can't, I don't know if you can, if it's 100% true or not, but it's said that they mostly listen to classical music. Like that's like their get down. That's like their jam, is like weird classical music. And within The Shining too, there's something within that movie, like the sound design within The Shining mixed with the imagery, like what you're mentioning, DoeNut. It has a profound effect on the subconscious mind. Several people that has brought me on to talk about this documentary has had very strange dreams after they've watched it. There's been
Watch your movie?
Watch my movie.
Oh,
Five, but that's because of the shining imagery that is within the movie. I had this exact same thing happen to me when I would watch The Shining really late at night. I would have some of the most screwed up dreams that I've ever had, and it's because of The Shining and something to do with the imagery and the sound within that. And the first handful of people that I sent it to watch the screener, like I sent to you, DoeNut, that night they went to sleep and had crazy wild dreams, and they would call me the next day and they'd be like, bro, what did you put in your movie, dude? And I was like, I didn't put anything in my movie, dude. Like it's all standard music. It's all standard sound effects and imagery from The Shining. And I was like, it's 100% The Shining. I've had that happen several times. My girlfriend actually loves watching The Shining. She used to watch it all the time before she went to sleep. And I was like, hey, we can't be watching this movie when we're going to sleep. I'm having these wild and crazy dreams. So let me know if you have a wild and crazy dream tonight, DoeNut. Let me know
I
tomorrow.
have wild and crazy dreams every night. Like it's just a constant, like ever since a kid. I think I've had 3 good dreams in my entire life.
I feel that. I'm right there with you. But that's just another weird thing of like what Kubrick is like doing, like with the imagery and the sound design of his films. Like that's what it's just
Why
so
does he have 2 lowercase i's? I don't know. I was trying to look up if there's any symbolic meaning to that. I mean, you got Eyes Wide Shut. You got this new movie, Blink Twice. Like there's 2 eyes, lowercase. Maybe it's just an aesthetic for.
I always figured it was the twins.
Oh, it is the twins. Yeah, it's the 2 little twins, right?
And yeah, I mean to state the obvious, but yeah, the little dot would be the head, and the little eye would be the body.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, that goes into that NLP right there.
Neuro linguistic programming, baby.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we were,
there's a lot of stuff just within Eyes Wide Shut as well that we kind of touch on within our movie, and then we bring on Joe Atwell, which he's like a really expert in Catcher in the Rye, and he's written several books. He wrote Caesar's Messiah, the Roman conspiracy to create Jesus, and he really dives deep into the Catcher in the Rye book and what it actually means, and his ultimate conclusion is that it's a book about the Freemasonic trajectory of a member going through all the levels of the lodge. But I don't want to give that too much away because that's all him in the documentary. And
I got a
watch it
question.
and figure that out. Oh yeah, and I use Hotel California
Yeah,
at the end of the
why?
trailers and in the documentary. That was the original music that I wanted to use in the actual documentary, but the lead singer of the Eagles he takes down everybody that even uses any kind of clips of his music, like the actual melody. Like he'll literally like copyright strike people for just doing covers of Hotel California.
So
And
was there a reason, or you just like the song, or is there an occult reason? Or an
that was just the first thing that popped into my mind in the opening credits for the movie. Like I just wanted to use that song because I felt like that it felt really it fit really well, and the way the things that are talked about within Hotel California, like you can
Plus,
never
the song
leave.
itself
Like
almost feels like psychic driving at some level.
yeah, so that's kind of it was just natural for me to want to put Hotel California in it, but I got the vocals in there at the end of the trailer and also in the documentary as well. So I think it fit really good because it's kind of the same thing that's being talked about within the song, is kind of about our theory of what we propose in A Clockwork Shining.
And this was released on 222, very occult day, 222. Just the numbers right there. And also the album was released on 128, which is this code I've been breaking down. December 8th. This one, Leave the World Behind, was released 128 code. Same birthday as Jim Morrison, 128. So I bet you there's something organic with that. You
Yeah,
got some slides because I was looking, like you were showing this at the end of the film, and I'm like, damn, he's doing the Baphomet right there with the hand up and the hand down, and it looks like
oh
other.
yeah, he is. I didn't even recognize that he had his hand up in there.
Yeah, he's not totally doing with the little two
It's pretty
like.
similar.
It's very similar though. Yeah, I was like, damn.
Yeah, I
I
got some
mean,
slides here I can bring up because I have a lot of the continuity errors that not a lot of people even really know about within The Shining that I think need to be brought to the attention of
nah.
people before. So when I was watching The Shining, I was, looking at things and trying to figure out, because I had seen the things that made me believe that our theory of what The Shining is really about is the correct theory. And as I'm going through it, I'm finding other things that relate to our theory being also correct. And one of the first things that I noticed is whenever Jack is at the bar the second time in the gold room, whenever the party is going on, there's a lady that stands up and she walks right in behind Jack right here. And she's actually the one that bumps into Grady to make him spill the alcohol on Jack. And I was looking at that scene over and over again. And I was like, looking at it, I was like, that looks like a bloody handprint, like on her ass, like on the bottom of her dress. And then I was like, okay, well, what else has this type of handprint? Now, this a few people have disputed this and said that it's not an actual bloody handprint, that it's like built into the dress, but regardless, it's in the shape of a bloody handprint. Well, regardless if it was actually a person that had some kind of red paint or blood on their hand and like put it on her dress, is still the shape of the dress and still in the shape of a handprint. And we see that with this iconic Tom Hanks movie with Wilson. It has that same type of bloody handprint on the volleyball. Here's
That was a great find. I shared that on my Twitter.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Giving me that repost there. But that's one of the main things that I first saw before I saw the thing that brought it all together. That this is I'm the first person that's ever seen this. I was the one that brought this to everyone's attention. So if anybody said that they had already seen it before, they're lying. They got it from me. That was all me. But there's other ones like this. The very first continuity error in the entire movie is the missing hedge maze. So in the first establishing shot of The Shining, you don't see a hedge maze behind the hotel, which is very important. Part of the movie is the hedge maze. This is the Kool-Aid on top of the fridge in Wendy and Jack's apartment, which the Jim Jones massacre happened 2 years before the release of The Shining. Some other people have found that one. This one is another one that other people have seen, which is Dopey the dwarf from the Seven Dwarfs is missing off of Danny's bathroom door there. Well, the door that's leading into the hallway into Danny's door. So whenever the doctor comes and meets with Danny and they're getting ready to walk out, you see a shot there at the bottom here where this arrow is pointing in. Dopey the dwarf is missing from the shot, which is something that is done over and over again throughout the movie. There's things that are constantly disappearing, things that are reappearing, like this one. The light switches are disappearing whenever Halloran is giving Wendy and Danny a tour of the kitchen area. Right before they go into the storage room, which we talk about in our documentary. It doesn't sound like he says storage room. It sounds like he says the story room. He definitely says the story room. And that's the most interesting part of it, because the story room is whenever the entire thing starts to really pick up and the story really evolves and we start getting heavy into the actual plot. But later on, whenever Wendy is dragging Jack's body into the story room, the light switch is missing. There's another one of light switches missing whenever Jack is going to walk in to meet Ullman for the first time for the interview. There's not a light switch below the picture to his office. And then later on, when he's going in to destroy the radio to prevent Wendy and Danny from leaving the hotel, there magically appears a light switch. This one is really interesting. It's not really it's a continuity error, but it's a continuity error within the dialogue of the characters. So whenever the doctor comes to visit Danny and Wendy at their apartment in Boulder, the doctor asks Wendy, when did Danny start to have these types of psychic abilities? And she says, well, it was right around the time of Danny's accident. And then she explains to the doctor that Jack came in late one night, super drunk, and Danny had spread Jack's papers all throughout the house, and Jack pulled him up by his arm and injured his arm. And then she goes on to say that from that point forward, he had quit drinking. So he had been sober for 5 months, right? So Jack later admits this to Lloyd, the bartender, but he says that it was 3 years ago. So there's even continuity errors within the dialogue of the characters within The Shining. Not only objects disappearing and reappearing, but they're also between the dialogue, which is another really interesting fact of this whole thing, because Stanley Kubrick is basically rewriting the entire movie as it's being shot. And that's something that no director would ever do. You would never be rewriting a movie or even writing a movie during the filming phase of making the movie. This is another really standard one that other people have pointed out before, which is the chair missing behind Jack whenever Wendy comes in, and they have their little confrontation there. And he's like, "Oh, well, when I'm sitting in this room, you know that I'm working and you don't bother me." And the chair is behind him in one shot. The next shot, it's gone. And then the next shot, it appears again. This is another really interesting one. Whenever Ullman is talking to Jack, this isn't an actual continuity, though there are a lot of continuity errors in between these shots. There's a pin that's on Ullman's desk that keeps jumping around the table. There's a cigarette ashtray with a cigarette butt in it that keeps moving and changing all through the table throughout their 10-minute long conversation, approximately 10-minute long. But whenever Ullman is talking to Jack here and is like, the hotel is open from such and such date to another date, it's not the right amount of time that Jack says that it should be 7 months, that he says that that's just enough time. 7 months of peace is just what I need. But instead he says 5 months when it would really be 7 months, because the hotel is shut down 7 months out of the year. This is another one that's really interesting that Jay Widener has brought up that's in our film, which is there's a lot of sexual innuendo within The Shining. And whenever Jack goes in to meet Ullman and shake his hand, the paper trail on the desk makes it look like Ullman is, getting a boner. And then there's another one that's back here whenever Wendy and Danny are talking, which is the teddy bear with the fire truck ladder sticking up, protruding from it. That's giving the appearance that the teddy bear is also getting a boing, 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 boing. And back here too is where Wendy picks up the baseball bat, which is another really interesting aspect of this that I didn't even see until later on. Right by the teddy bear, where the fire truck ladder is sticking up from the teddy bear, is where she grabs the baseball bat that she later strikes Jack in the head with. This is the other one that we'd already brought up with the teddy bear and the foreshadowing of events later on in The Shining. This one's really interesting. This is Tang. This is another one that people have already pointed out before, which we know Tang was really popularized by astronauts on the Apollo program. That was their drink of choice, supposedly, because something with the water. They had to add some kind of additive to the water to make the water taste good.
Interesting.
This one is, which really feeds into the moon landing stuff. This one is a continuity error. Whenever Danny first sees room 237, there's a door in the first shot that is closed to the right of them. And then in the next shot, it's open. This one is the carpet switching patterns. I think we already showed this one, but in the first shot, it's an open facing hexagon. And then in the next shot, it's a closed facing hexagon. It's a possibility that he just had Danny switch positions on the carpet, but it's still a continuity error. It still doesn't, run in a congruent fashion. You can see how everything is basically set up the exact same. It's just he's turned around on the carpet. This is the Apollo 11 shirt that Danny's wearing when he stands up. He's wearing the Apollo 11 shirt. He goes into room 237, which at that time, 237,000 miles away from the Earth, the moon was supposed to have been. We know that it's farther away now. That's if you believe that the moon is even real. I don't know. Who knows? But this is the Toy Story Shining reference. The TVs and appliances within The Shining are not appeared to be plugged into anything, especially this top TV here. So this really ties in with our theory and also ties in with the moon landing theory of Stanley Kubrick and what was going on with him, because that was broadcasted supposedly live to everyone. So if if the footage was actually faked and it wasn't real, then they would basically be watching a recording. So this is kind of what I personally believe that Stanley Kubrick was trying to say within these TVs and appliances not actually being plugged into anything. He's like, it's a fraud, right? This is another dialogue continuity error that is between Stuart Ullman, and which Stuart Ullman looks a lot like JFK. A lot of people have pointed that out. And we also point that out in our film as well. Whenever Jack is interviewing with Ullman to get the position at the Overlook, Ullman says that that the previous caretaker is named Charles Grady. Now, whenever Jack meets Grady in the bathroom, whenever he spills the alcohol on him, he refers to himself as Delbert Grady. This is the Catcher in the Rye that we've already shown. When we first see Wendy within The Shining, she's reading a book by the intelligence officer J.D. Salinger. This one's a really interesting one that I don't think a lot of people have actually caught. So whenever Jack is breaking down the door to the bathroom that Wendy and Danny is in, he only breaks down 1/4 panel of the door. And then whenever he hears Halloran's snowmobile showing up to the hotel and he turns around, both panels of the door have been destroyed. It's a little known one that not a lot of people catch. This one really, I've never heard anyone see this or anyone ever talk about this. This one's super interesting. It's so blatant. It's so in your face. Like this one is like, how you could watch it 100 times and not even notice it, but it's so when you watch it like now, you're going to definitely see it. So whenever Halloran is giving Wendy and Danny a tour of the hotel, this is the freezer room that in this top photo that he is opening, and the door handle is on the right side of the door. The second photo is them exiting the freezer room, and the handle is on the left side of the door, and the background is completely different. The top photo before they entered into the freezer room looks like a kitchen area behind them with the blackboard back here, but whenever they exit, they got the two double doors with fire alarms on the wall, and this what looks like some kind of disposable trash can here on the right, and light switches here as well. So it's a completely different set. So they had them walking into the freezer room with one set in the background and had him walking out with a completely different set in the background. This one's another interesting one. The light shade whenever Wendy is trying to escape from Danny coming into the room before she throws Danny through the window for him to escape to later return back into the hotel. There's a lamp that's on the on their desk beside their bed, by their nightstand, and it's crooked. And then whenever Jack walks in, it's straight. This one is the Monarch poster in the background of the games room whenever Danny first sees the twins. And this is one of the things that people have previously pointed out. This isn't something that I had seen, but it relates to our theory. So at the end of the movie, whenever Jack is outside and it appears that he had been frozen to death, the camera pans into the hotel, and then it zeroes in on the wall that says 1921, July 4th, 1921. He's doing the hand thing like you said. And whenever the picture fades from the faraway shot, which is the top photo, to the bottom close-up shot, for a split second, you can see this little mustache beginning to form on Jack's face, which then relates to the final thing that I seen within The Shining that puts all of this stuff together and relates to this mustache being seen on Jack's face, which is when they're walking through the gold room, when they're getting the tour of the Overlook. In the background of the gold room on the wall, there's a Nazi swastika on the background of the wall that no one has ever seen before. And the only way that I seen this is I seen The Shining in a really big screen TV. They were re-showing the movie, and I got to see it on the big screen. So that's the only way that I was able to see that swastika in the background of the gold rim.
Nice. Wow. That's an incredible breakdown. Thank you for showing us that. What's your thoughts on the finger? Got anything on that? Because I thought it was connected. It looked like some ET stuff. I bet you this is like some secret Hollywood thing.
Yeah, what the doctor basically explains to Wendy in the beginning of the movie is that his abilities are not only due to trauma that he induced, but also a form of the direct words out of her mouth is self hypnosis.
Right. Well, Ryder, you crushed it tonight. That's what everybody's saying up in the comments. Appreciate you coming up on here.
Well,
Paranoid.
there's a lot of other. We want to talk about the ending of the movie, right? The part that Kubrick cut out. I'm not going to explain the whole thing, but just for an incentive for people to actually watch it, there's an entire part of the movie that Kubrick filmed that he cut out of the movie. That was an entire end scene to the movie that never made it in. So whenever he was doing his test screenings, he had a different ending to The Shining than the one that we're all used to, that I just explained with Jack outside where he's frozen to death and it zooms in on the picture on the wall. There was a completely separate ending to the movie that was originally in there, but then he sent his editor to the theaters to splice out the reels of the footage to edit out that original ending. And his excuse was that whenever he did the test screenings, he noticed that the audience was just getting up and leaving automatically. They weren't, staying around to chat with each other. It wasn't a film that he thought that it was cut right. So people were just getting up and automatically leaving. So he sent his editor to go in and cut the film. And that's the excuse, the official excuse that I think that he uses. But we believe that he cut out that original ending to the movie because it reveals the entire plot of the movie, which is our theory and our theory of what The Shining is really about. So I really hope people go and check it out. And if you like it and you think it was good, please leave a rating and a review on Amazon Prime, and please help support us so we can continue making good movies.
Yeah, I got that link down below. You can go click it and go straight to his movie. Everybody go watch it. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for making it. And Paranoid American and I got the Illuminati comic. Make sure to go support Illuminati comic. Go click them links down below and access the secrets. And Paranoid, what you got for us before we sign out?
I would just love to know, Ryder, if you see any connection between the Shining movie and the Dr. Sleep movie, or do these exist in completely different universes since Kubrick didn't work on both?
Well, I think that Dr. Sleep was they don't really have anything to do with each other. There were two separate, completely different movies. Stanley Kubrick didn't have anything to do with Dr. Sleep. That was all Stephen King. But the interesting point to the connection between Dr. Sleep, the movie, and The Shining and Lookout Mountain Hotel is that Lookout Mountain Hotel also burnt to the ground and looked very similar to the Overlook Hotel within The Shining. And then at the end of Dr. Sleep, the Overlook Hotel burns to the ground because they go in there. Spoiler for Dr. Sleep, which I like the film, but it's not. It doesn't have any real symbolic type of meaning that Stanley Kubrick would put into his movies, because that's not the way that Stephen King wrote things. Stephen King was really straightforward, and Stanley Kubrick did not like Stephen King's writing ability. I'm sure he was like, okay, well, you can maybe be able to write good novels and good books, but you can't write a movie. And that just reminds me of another thing that I forgot to put in the slideshow was whenever Halloran is driving up to the Overlook Hotel, the accident on the left is a red beetle that is crushed by a semi. And in the original novel, The Shining, Jack drives a red beetle, but Stanley Kubrick turned it into a yellow beetle, which seems like a big middle finger to Stephen King.
It couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. And I do have one other question to kind of leave us up on this. Do you have an opinion on who's the closest thing to a living Stanley Kubrick that we've got now, like an existing director?
I do, but I can't think of his name right off the bat. It's he directed this movie called The Killing of a Sacred Deer. If you could look that up really quickly, DoeNut, The Killing of a Sacred Deer. That director, he's got like a foreign name. I can't think of it right now, but that movie is probably the closest thing that I had seen to a Kubrick-esque film in a really long time. Really, really interesting movie. And also, there's not really a director that carries that style in every single kind of movie. Like there's movies that are like Kubrick style, but they're kind of like one-off movies, sort of like Cadu Lake. I don't know if you guys watched Cadu Lake or not, but it's sort of like that. You have to put two and two together on your own and figure it out for yourselves within the imagery of the movie. And it's not explained to you within the dialogue of the movie. You have to really pay attention to exactly what's going on. So I would say Killing of a Sacred Deer and Cadu Lake, which Cadu Lake is on HBO right now. So there's not really a director because they don't keep the same style through their entire filmography. Sometimes it's like one-offs, but I've heard that Smile 2 is very Kubrick-esque as well. I haven't seen Smile 2 yet, but Jay Widener said that it's one of the best movies that he's seen in a while.
Really? Okay. That's interesting.
Wow, yeah, because I thought it looked kind of like the first one looked a little cheesy, but I'll go check it out now if y'all like it. Smile 2. And there's something with them demon faces and the smile, you know?
Yeah, and then also with the handprint on the back of the lady's dress as well. I mean, it's a four-fingered handprint, and that's what some people equate to. A demonic entity sometimes has four fingers and such.
Oh, like the AI.
And that's why I related it to the Wilson. Which you could get into all kinds of stuff with Tom Hanks too. That's a whole other rabbit hole that you can go down with all the information about Tom Hanks and what maybe that bloody handprint actually means.
Wilson! No! That's what like all the people that are upset Trump got in, they do. Wilson! No! That's probably some weird MK Ultra with too. That's
with the
wild.
orange handprint.
No!
Cheeto dust.
Orange handprint on everything. Orange man bad.
What's your thoughts, Ryder? Ryder ride out. Ryder gotta get paid. Ryder rock. Ryder roll. Backseat to 12 gauge. Bang got mud smoking angel dust. That's psychopathic riders. Psychopathic riders dumping. Psychopathic riders. Hey. Hey, yay.
Get it.
Ryder ride out. Ryder gotta get paid. Ryder. Yeah. That's a cool name. Ryder. 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 Ride out. There's a rap group, Psychopathic Riders, and that's like what I listened to all like growing up.
Oh, I thought you were just coming out with that off the rip. That's an actual song.
I'm not that talented. We did an episode on the fake aliens, and its connections to MK Ultra mind control over on Patreon. I never had a chance to release that, but that's okay. This one was a good release, I think, and I'll release that one in the future. But what's your thoughts on Tucker Carlson getting these back massages by demon entities?
I 100% have no idea about that. Is that true?
Yeah,
He says it's true.
he said it's true, and like
It
everyone,
was an interview that he had. I can't remember what interview he's on, but he personally said that. So it wasn't like a wild story that someone made up. This came from the mouth of Tucker Carlson.
That he's getting massages by demonic entities.
well, they were scratching them. But when I hear like someone scratching you, I think of a back massage.
I don't think so either. I think that's a succubus or whatever that is. It an incubus or a succubus that's a woman? I don't know. I get them confused, but
Succubus is the woman.
them succubuses, dude. The succubus is getting Tucker Carlson. But when it comes to like MK Ultra and stuff, I mean, we know that we talk about it in our movie that the Air Force was highly involved in MK Ultra programs. Walter Bosley, the AFOSI Air Force Special Agent, talks about it and how his dad went through the Air Force MK Ultra program. So why would the Air Force be interested in MK Ultra? I mean, what do we have in our skies? I mean, what's one of the most popular things to talk about now?
Well, not
UFOs,
just that,
baby.
a lot of the research that we inherited from World War II had everything to do with high altitude research, which were some of the most grotesque and horrific experiments that they even did. It was all high altitude, but it was because that also was a direct benefit to the Air Force. The Air Force at that point, and even today, is sort of the most technologically and corporate friendly out of all the different branches. So they kind of integrate really well with all of that new tech and trying out new things. And for Ryder or for anyone else even watching, another thing too, when you were talking about the original recruits when MK Ultra just started, I think this was like Project Chatter was the Navy, and then it got into Bluebird, and then it gets into MK Ultra, which affects everybody across the board, no matter what. You could just be a civilian, you'd still get affected by it. But one of the early groups that got these early tests was these guys called Donovan's Dreamers, and this is named after William Donovan, who was a high-ranking officer that was kind of in charge in the initial steps before MK Ultra even existed, before the CIA even existed. He was there for the transition between OSS and to the CIA. And these guys called Donovan's Dreamers, they had that name because they were dosing them with so many different substances, and they would freak out on all different fronts. And this also, I think, once they figured out, okay, we can't just dose new recruits to our whim because it has very unpredictable results, they start to refine this a little bit. And then there's a place called Camp X, which was a joint military training compound that both Donovan sent people to, but also Canada, I believe, and I think the Royal Air Force, they all sort of shared this place as a spot for them to like learn about spy craft, essentially. And I think a lot of the claims were that they were dosed here too, but this was not just to throw it at some random recruit and see what happens. This one was more of like, okay, orient yourself. Here's like a new thing that might happen to you. So here's what it feels like. Here's how to operate under it. So there was also, and this is a deep, deep rabbit hole. This Camp X and the William Donovan rabbit holes are wild.
That is really wild. I have to definitely look into that. But when you think of like what you just mentioned there, it's like, well, what are the Men in Black? That's essentially like what the Men in Black are. Like they're these agents to go out, and then why are they always around like UFO sightings and people that have supposedly seen something strange in the sky, and they're like almost immediately there. I mean, there's been reports of Men in Black showing up surrounding all kinds of different stuff. So it makes sense that if it was some kind of operation, it was some kind of experiment, that they were just throwing something up in the sky that isn't necessarily real. They're just making people believe that it's real. You would want to go talk to the suspect that potentially witnessed this event to find out what it is that they seen.
Word.
That's just the way that I look at it. That's the way that you would run an operation, and that's kind of what happens at the end of The Shining as well, with the original cut that used to be there. Ullman mentions to Wendy and Danny that why don't you come and stay with me in my house in LA? Well, why would he want to do that? Well, if this is some kind of experiment that's happening up there, if it's an experiment on not only the people that are watching it, but an experiment within the film, and it's in a film about an experiment, and Stanley Kubrick's also running an experiment on the actors in the film, the way that he treated Shelley Duvall and the way that he's rewriting the movie as it's being filmed, then,
Oh, so when you wrote-
Ullman would want to watch Danny and Wendy to see what kind of effects the experiment had on them. And that's what I think the Men in Black do. I think that's what their operation entails, and that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to go and find out what it was that these supposed witnesses saw, so that they can collect that data. And in the meantime, they tell the people, shut up about this, don't talk about it, don't say anything about this to anybody, because it's an experiment.
Yeah, that was a good movie. And then you wrote "Rest in Peace, Shelley Duvall." Did she pass away this year or something?
Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
wow, I didn't know that. Yeah, it was a good movie. Good movie. Good work.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah, I liked it a lot.
I didn't know about that Doja Cat thing. I don't pay attention to mainstream music, but is that one of her new songs?
Yeah, she's the devil. She's the man. She's a rebel.
Don't get us a copyright strike from your perfect recreation here.
You're just humming it, dude. You already hummed the Ryder song, bro. They're gonna hit you with that too. But there's another one that's a reference to a Clockwork Orange, which is in the movie. Well, it's in the series Legion. Have either one of you seen Legion?
The comic book or the superhero show?
The show that was on FX.
Right, yeah. It was superheroes, I think.
Yeah.
Oh,
but that's
what?
Go.
The Stanley Kubrick's first film was called Spartacus, and that is the Illuminati founder's name, Spartacus.
Oh, good. Good call out, man. That was also one of the few movies that represent. I think there was only 3 actors that he ever worked more than once with, and it was just 2 for each of those, and that was Kirk Douglas. But I think Kirk Douglas is actually the one that pulled him onto Spartacus. It was already in the works, and he was not happy with how it was coming out, so he demanded Stanley Kubrick take over. I think that's. I mean, I might be oversimplifying that.
Yeah, but that's the main name. That's the Illuminati founder name.
Yeah, that's Adam. And to anyone that backed us tonight or even in the last couple of nights, we will be giving you all your Illuminati nicknames on an upcoming show. So don't feel like you missed out.
Oh yeah, Illuminati comic. Go get the IlluminatiComic.com. Go grab it. We almost at the unlocking the secrets. Look, there's Doja Cat right there.
Ooh.
And she's the women.
Yeah, there's not a lot of other Illuminati books or documentaries or magazine articles or anything that embrace all of the different aspects of this. Sometimes they'll take just the historical route and you'll learn about the Bavarian Illuminati and Jesuits, and then it'll end somewhere around the early 1800s. Or you'll get someone talking about how Jay-Z and Beyonce and Wu-Tang and whoever else are in this hip-hop Illuminati. But I'm not familiar with a lot of different works that bridge that gap, that say, okay, well, what happened between the 1800s and the 2000s? What about those 200 years? And this comic, this Illuminati comic, it actually covers that gap. So I kind of that's kind of what Ryder was doing too, is Ryder approaches The Shining and says, okay, where are all these holes that everyone else sort of glosses over in all the previous interpretations of this, and fills it out chronologically and thoroughly. So I like that style. I like the cut of your jib, sir.
Thank you, Paranoid American. Really appreciate that, and I love your guys' work as well. Please go and support the Illuminati comic.
Illuminati
comic.
And go support the new film, Clockwork Shining. That's a good title.
I originally wanted it to be called Hotel Monarch, but
This is better because it's
Yeah.
more like
You get the idea right
Yeah.
away.
yeah.
Yeah, you understand it just by the title. Yeah.
I wanted to call the Illuminati comic Dolphins, Cats, and Donuts, and and
And
Paranoid Mary was
penguins,
like Paranoid Miss Loud. No,
worms.
no.
Another real life example of people getting dosed with LSD is also with uh Oswald and the gentleman that shot Oswald. Shoot, I'm blanking on his name.
Yeah.
Jack Ruby. Sorry, Jack Ruby. Yes, I don't know. I don't know why it just raced my mind. Sometimes I gotta make room for other things in my mind so I can remember. So I discard some older things. But Jack Ruby was also supposedly unknowingly dosed with LSD while he was in prison.
Well,
He got a visit from Jolly West.
Not only did he have a connection with Jolly West, but Jack Ruby also had a run-in with a guy named George Hunter White. George Hunter White is the one that ran Operation Midnight Climax, where they would dose people behind a two-way mirror, and they would watch, like whatever they were happening. They were trying to get military personnel to give up top secret information under the influence of all these drugs. But George Hunter White actually helped bust Jack Ruby in some drug before the FBI or the DEA existed. It was the FBN, and he got busted. Jack Ruby personally got busted by George Hunter White. So, and there's not a lot of documentation about exactly what happened after that, but Jack Ruby, for his entire life, essentially acted as this middleman that could operate between like the mafiosos, the black market. All sides. Yeah. Not just the regular two, but like the 3 or the 4 or the 5, intelligence, everything. So there are Jack Ruby was a linchpin in between MK Ultra and JFK and so many other aspects.
Yeah, it was just so interesting because we talk about it in our first documentary how Jack Ruby basically came out in a press conference and was like, hey, you'll never know the reason why I shot Oswald. These were people in really high up places. And then before you know it, he was pretty much saying that he's the only person that knew about any of this stuff. And before you knew it, he was in his prison cell. He gets a visit from Jolly West, and then he starts rambling off about a bunch of wacky stuff like fairies and like goblins made him do it and all that. And he's just basically out of his mind. So there's so many real life incidents of people being unknowingly dosed with LSD, because it's one thing to be knowingly take some sort of hallucinogenic, right? You're going to be expecting to feel the effects of the hallucinogenic. You're going to be expecting to feel that head change, that body high that is associated with not only the psychological aspect of it, but the body high as well. But if you're unknowingly dosed with LSD, that's a completely different story. That could potentially just put you completely out of your mind, just like what they were doing to the army personnel as well. They were just dosing them up with high amounts of LSD, which was called BZ, and they would do open air testing with these people. They would simulate a battle operation, and then they would just put these big barrels of BZ out there on the battlefield, and it would just be like a fog would come in over all of these soldiers, and then they would go into this hallucinogenic state, and they couldn't do anything. And then the people that wasn't out on the battlefield when the smoke rolled in had to go out there and get them, and then they would take them into a facility, and then they would ask them a bunch of these questions, and then like run all these tests and experiments on them. Like, it's so much screwed up stuff that has been done to and just like you mentioned, Operation Midnight Climax. It's the exact same type of situation. Like, I couldn't imagine being unknowingly dosed with a hallucinogenic drug. Like, I would literally think that I would probably think that I was losing my mind.
Well, there's another layer on top of that too, because not only was it unwittingly being dosed, but some of these people were being dosed before it was even released what these substances did or that they even existed. So now, because I guess if someone like unknowingly dosed you now, you'd at least at a certain point have the ability to recognize, oh, maybe this is a hallucinogen. Maybe somehow I was dosed with a psychedelic. But if this was happening you to in the 40s or the 50s, you might not have the luxury to even have a base of reference for what to even expect.
That's right. You would have no idea because you'd never really experienced it before. So you would just, and there's also, we talk about it in the documentary as well. Walter Bosley brings it up that there was examples of entire, like an LSD aerosol being sprayed on groups of unsuspecting people. Like the CIA would have like parties or whatever, and then they would just spray LSD aerosol into the entire house or the apartment or the room. And then before you know it, all these people would be tripping out.
We call that a free lapse in recovery.
There was also an antidote. This is a little known fact that I found in my own research on something, but the CIA around this same time, the Frank Olson and the early MK Ultra days, they had a top secret compound called MER-17, which also had like I think it was like Fremquil or something, and now it's known as azacyclinol. But it's essentially an antidote for psychedelics. So if you unwittingly do get dosed and you are able to recognize it, you can take this MER-17 and it would neutralize the effects within minutes. And this, you can find this the actual top secret declassified video where they're straight up talking about exactly what it's used for and how it's for agents out in the field. So
That's really
they
interesting.
were all doing this to each other.
That's wild. I didn't know that there was an antidote to hallucinogenic drugs. I thought when you took them, there was no going back, baby. You were just in it to the end. You were riding that wave all the way through.
And I think that's why a lot of people don't even realize this exists. If you just look for MER-17, there's a whole bunch of different commercial names for it now that it's no longer top secret. But that was right now I think they use it for schizophrenia patients to avoid like a schizophrenic fit, but it's just as valid as it was back then.
Well, there's also a drug that's called EA2233. That's a topical type of drug. We show some of the scenes in our documentary where it's not LSD that's inhaled. It's not a hallucinogenic drug that's inhaled. It's a topical. It's like these little dots that are like put on your skin, and it absorbs like through the skin, and it's supposedly made out of like some cannabinoids and like it's like a concoction, which a lot of people don't know that Sidney Gottlieb even had a brother that was a plant biologist. So I mean, put two and two together there, who was concocting all these drugs for the CIA to be using. I mean, would it not possibly be the freaking head of the MK Ultra's program's brother that was a freaking plant biologist that was concocting and creating a lot of these different drugs to use on people?
Right. Well, he was the botanist, and then Sidney Gottlieb was a poison expert. That was how he even got his entry into the CIA, was from being like the world's creepiest expert in poisonous substances.
And it wasn't just which we show a list of all of the drugs that were used in the MK Ultra programs during Kathy O'Brien's section of the documentary, and there's like over 100 of them. It ranges from caffeine to nicotine to amphetamine to antidepressants, to antipsychotics, methamphetamine. Like it keeps going and going and going and going. And the common misconception, of course, people already know by now that it wasn't just LSD. It was they were just they're doing all kinds of different drugs, and that's where the Adderall and Ritalin came out of. They came out of those MK Ultra programs. And then what do you know? Later on, all of our children and all of our kids are being put on Adderall and Ritalin.
You can actually find those studies. They go back to like the 1920s, where they were literally giving kids meth and alcohol to see how it would affect their studies in school, and they were able to show that giving kids meth was making them get better grades.
It's crazy, dude. It's crazy, and then that's all because like a kid is being like unruly, or he's not being able to sit still, or that's just a kid being a kid. Like a kid isn't meant to sit in a classroom for 8 hours a day, like every day. That's not the human nature of what a kid is supposed to be doing. So then they're like, oh well, there's something wrong with them, and we got to put them on all these medications, and it's an addictive thing as well, and it just gets these kids like super screwed up, and they don't even really know why they're screwed up.
Yeah, stay sober, kids. Drugs are bad. Okay.
Okay.
I was watching South Park a couple of nights ago. It's so funny.
When is that new season going to drop, dude? We're about due for a new South Park season, bro.
Did they say they were going to do a new South Park season?
Yeah, they actually said that they're gonna not be political this time.
Well, no, I love the Trump, Mr. Garrison stuff, dude.
I don't know if you can take them for their word ever. You know what I mean?
They took LSD out the
red carpet. Yeah, I forgot what specific thing it was. It was like an MTV Movie Award or something.
It was at some award show. So it'll be season 27 next year.
They can't drop the Mr. Garrison stuff.
$1 billion deal. That's crazy.
They've been shorter and shorter. They I think what was the last movie that they did? It was the Ozempeg movie that I thought was freaking hilarious.
That was so funny.
I kind of like that if they just continuously do these movies where they can do like an hour or an hour and a half long episode essentially. I could see that as being like a whole extra branch of South Park.
Yeah, that's essentially what they've done, because I think the last season wasn't until like that was like what, 2 years ago at least. So it's been 2 years, and they're normally on like a yearly schedule. But I think they did like 3 or 4 movies on Paramount Plus in between the release of these 2 seasons.
Well, when you got these $1 billion deals, you can maybe start dictating your own new novel ways to release your content.
This is 128. It's 128 code.
See, I freaking love Mr. Garrison as Trump. I think it's freaking hilarious.
Mr. Garrison.
A little rally? You want to do a little rally? Do a little rally.
I like how Randy became like the most popular character.
Yeah, me too. Integrity, bro. You gotta have integrity. Integrity.
But I think his first breakout role was like, I thought this was America, because he kind of became at that point a representation of America when he went on that rant, and ever since then he's been on an upward like incline.
I thought it was America. Yeah, that was so funny. And my theory is, you know how like a lot of people are trying to be rebellious by like saying like racist stuff, or saying like the R word, and saying the F word, like, and saying the J word, like everything that South Park did, right, is like now.
Like you're so edgy. I did this in 7th grade too, bro. Right.
Well, so that's
the way out of Hot Topic.
So everybody who thinks they're like the counterculture now is like saying all this like racist stuff, the J stuff.
They're just being Viacom in the late 90s.
This is what I think it is those people that are doing that now, they were sheltered as kids. When I was a kid, I was watching this. I was saying all those words to my friends. Everyone was jumping each other. Like, I didn't live a sheltered life as a kid. So I kind of grew up quicker. And I feel like a lot of people who have the internet now that are like influencers that are leading this counterculture of pushing this, I feel like they might have just been sheltered when they were kids, because I grew up in Vegas, so I wasn't sheltered.
Well, it's also like another way because there's certain words that you can't say now, so they're like substituting older words that have that you weren't really supposed to say before, but you can kind of start bringing it back now. Like you can't really say the F word or the G word in like a derogatory way, but now it's becoming acceptable to say the R word again. It's kind of coming back full circle because these other words that were used to describe essentially the same thing, you can't really say anymore.
I just don't understand why that's such a big deal. Like, you know what I mean? Maybe I'm
they're just words, bro.
I don't say any bad words really on my show because it's harder to not curse and say those words. It's more of a sign of intelligence. I feel like if you can do it. It took me a while because all I did growing up was say cuss words and all that. That if you can talk and hold a whole conversation and not even say any of it, I think that's a skill on its own.
I don't on my show, but I do in like real life, like with my friends. Like before we started the show, I think I dropped the F-bomb like 10 times. But I don't whenever I'm on like when I'm doing my show or if I'm a guest on somebody else's show. But like in real life, yeah, I'm dropping it all the time.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know what you mean. Well, we had a good show tonight. That was fun.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me on.
I never want it to end. I just want to kick it with y'all all night long.
Like Kubrick shooting the movie.
Long.
Get some more serenation from DoeNut here, bro. Coming out with all the bangers.
Not long.
You have to drop an album. Actually, yeah, we'll maybe have an album as one of the future stretch goals here.
Yeah, if y'all go support the Illuminati comic tonight and get us past the 33,000 mark, I will release my meditations of success on every tier gets an audio.
Oh wow! Is this an exclusive? I haven't even heard about this before.
It's not. If people support the Illuminati comic, we get past that 33 mark. Everyone will get the digital download of DoeNut's Manifest Wealth, Health, and Abundance.
Okay, I'll have to update all the marketing and all the promo. We need to make a commercial now, bro.
In the next 24 hours.
We got to cut a commercial for this.
It's got to be like in the next 24 hours.
You got to make the mark in the next 24 hours, or you don't get the affirmation. Amazing audio recording of DoeNut. That you should turn that into a course, bro. You should be doing courses, DoeNut. Don't even worry about this other stuff. Just do meditation courses, dude.
Yes.
$333 for DoeNut's meditation course.
Yeah.
For the first chapter.
Well, click the link below. Make sure to smash that like button. Go watch the movie. We here with Paranoid American, Ryder Lee. Go watch the movie. I'm going to play the commercial now. We're going to go out. We're going to sign out.
Well, you got to say
much love.
And God bless.
God bless you. Sorry, I gotta.
Taken. Hallucinogenic drugs, hypnosis, electric shocks to the brain.
Stop it, please, I beg you!
Some of the methods used in secret CIA mind control experiments.
There are many theories as to what The Shining is really about, from the faking of the moon landing to Native American genocide and the Holocaust.
Now, if he did fake the Apollo moon landing, then he probably has really deep connections into the intelligence world. Why are there these gigantic continuity errors in this movie?
The occulted meaning has to be comprehensible. It's just hidden, usually in a very systematic way, so that it could be understood by someone coming along later on who knows what the real meaning is supposed to be.
We believe that there's something even more sinister lurking beneath the surface of this masterful film.
So Lookout Mountain Hotel looked a lot like the Overlook Hotel.
you realise that there's no such thing as coincidences like that.
As Lookout Mountain Studios, ran by the Air Force.
That told the story of nuclear weapons testing by the United States.
Of the Army, Navy, and Air Force, the Air Force was known to be the most excited, the most turned on by MKUltra and its prospects.
Reportedly, there were more films made at Lookout Mountain than at all the other film studios in Hollywood.
We really don't know what these famous film directors were being recruited for, what project or whatever. Was it the moon landing?
The CIA's MKUltra programs were admitted to the public in 1975, 5 years before the release of The Shining.
These experiments were done without the informed consent of the patients.
Look at some UFO cases and the things that are reported. Tells me that MKUltra is likely being applied.
In my MKUltra mind control experience, I was taken to various military, NASA, and DARPA installations for sophisticated mind control programming.
Walt Disney, Marilyn Monroe, James Stewart, Cary Grant, Ronald Reagan. Nobody really knows what they were doing up there.
As well as high-ranking military and Department of Defense personnel.
What people don't realize is that many of the people that worked with Kubrick also worked with Kennedy. This is actually the smoking gun proving that Kubrick was working with the government.
These were all CIA-sponsored experiments.
I said, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains.
And putting little symbolic, cryptic clues and Easter eggs pertaining to the fact that they're still doing it.
These clues include a hidden swastika in the background of the gold room.
What was the setup, what it was being told, and realize that it was a lie all along.
But right there in the narrative, in the dialogue, they're telling you that this was a very real program coming out of those nice folks at the CIA.
Here's Johnny.
Learn about the full history of the Bavarian Illuminati. Adam Weishaupt, Alumbrados, Jesuits, Rosicrucians, Freemasons, and more. From the 18th century to modern day, we expose it all. That's right, it's the Illuminati comic from DoeNut and Paranoid American. Get yours now at IlluminatiComic.com.